everybody is having a fantastic Thursday. I am Trisha with Insectopia, and we have been talking about insects every day of October, and we will continue to do so until the end of October. Now, I mentioned in the chat that I do have super exciting news today, and I did want to share that with you. So I got a call first thing. Yeah. Hi, Julia. All right. So I got a call first thing this morning from a friend saying that she was recommending me to one of our local Fox channels to be on the news tomorrow, bright and early. So I'm actually going to be going live. I'm going to be going to the radio station where they film, not radio station, to the recording building, to the building where they record the news. It's a little late. My brain is a little mush tonight, because I have been prepping myself to go live tomorrow on the morning news from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. So I have a bunch of different segments over the course of 3 hours. We're going to be talking about, they're going to be asking me and talking to me about insects in relation to luck. So from the 6 to 7 a.m. hour, we're going to be talking about ladybugs and how in some cultures ladybugs bring good luck. And having a ladybug land on you is good luck. From the 7 to 8 hour, we're going to be talking about crickets and how crickets sometimes bring good luck. I know that there are cultures that believe that setting a cricket on the mantle will bring you good luck. And other than both crickets and ladybugs, from the 8 to 9 hour, I'm going to be showing one of my tarantulas live on television, and I'm going to be handling it in front of a bunch of people, which is both exciting and a little nervous because I haven't handled my tarantulas in front of lots of people yet. They've been mostly handled by me in like a controlled environment. So that should be super interesting. And with all of that said, I have to wake up in like 6 hours. Yeah, I have to wake up 6 hours from now. So, it's a little bit crazy to be live streaming because I've got lots of stuff to do and I have to sleep, but I didn't want to miss out on our Invertober, and I didn't want to miss out on seeing you guys and maybe sketching a little bit. Where'd my pencil go? My pencil! I've got my eraser. Oh, there's my pencil. Perfect. So I have my pencil and my eraser. It's so nice that I have a handful of people here. So that's what's exciting about tomorrow. And let's see. I actually got my tarantula to eat today. It hadn't eaten in a couple of weeks, and so it was making me a little nervous as to if it was going to be ready to be handled on the news tomorrow. But she's eating right now, so hopefully she will be happy and satiated and won't be all angry tomorrow. Yeah, so that is what I'm pretty excited about. It also means that at maximum, our live stream is going to be going 1 hour. It's going to be going from 10 to 11. I can't stay longer than the hour just because I have a handful of other things I need to get done before I'm allowed to sleep. All right, so today we are looking at a trogid beetle. Trogids are in, Trogody is actually the scientific name for the family. The common name for these beetles, I believe, for the whole family of beetles are Trogody, and then the common name for our beetle is the skin beetle. And that's because this is a beetle, that comes to dead animals, right? So it's one of the beetles that's kind of the final beetle. It's not going to go to the dead animal when it's first dead. That's for the maggots, and then the rove beetles come, and the burying beetles, and the carrion beetles. The skin beetles are the last insect to show up to a carcass, right? They're going to eat all of the things that everybody else doesn't eat. And that's why they're called skin beetles, because they'll chew on the skin. They actually eat hide, they'll eat hair, and they eat feathers. Alright, so they eat all of those kind of nasty things that everybody else doesn't eat and doesn't seem to get nutrients from, but trogons have the ability to gain nutrients from them. So, yes, very much a cleanup crew. Now, I absolutely love the texturing on this beetle, and it has a really interestingly shaped scutellum. So right here, in between these four wings, when we zoom in, you'll see it. But it's kind of like a diamond shape. Rather than being a triangle like normal, it actually comes out in a diamond. So a lot of times when we sketch, my sketch might be a little faster than normal too, because it normally takes me about an hour and a half to sketch these. So our very light first sketch is going to be, let's see, up here at the top, you may think that this is the head, all right? But this section right here is actually the first segment of the thorax. The head is way up here. And if you look at how the kind of the edges of the pronotum, or the edges of this first segment of the thorax, they almost can kind of tuck in together. They can kind of almost roll up into a ball. Their legs do tuck all the way underneath their body, and they can look like a little rock. If you pick them up and scare them, they just tuck in, and they tuck in their head, and they tuck in their legs, and they look like a rock. And it's super cute to see. You would think so, that with all of the grossness. But here's the thing, these guys, they're not going to, by the time the skin beetles get to the carcass, it's dry, right? There is no more liquid involved. It is bones, skin, fur, or feathers. There is nothing else left of the carcass by the time the trogons get here. They're the final step. So, you know, they do look a little bit like leather. And if you imagined what the skin or the leather of the skin of a bird might look like without its feathers after it's plucked, it might be semi-similar. My guess is that that it does help them blend in somehow. All right. So my first sketch that gives me just the overall shape of my beetle, I'm actually just going to start with a D shape, and I'm just going to kind of even this line out straight, and then when I come back, I will add this. So I'm going to give myself a nice straight line and give myself this D shape. Keep in mind, our first light sketch is super light, and it's just to make sure that you've got your proportions right. So when we are zooming in and moving our specimen around, you may lose track of the proportions of your insect. And so that's why we always do this kind of first very light sketch to get all these proportions in. All right. And I'm going to, maybe I will just give it a little bit of shaping so that I have that separation. And then, So keep in mind when this beetle rolls up, it's going to be able to look completely solid, like one rock. So your elytra, or your wings right here, are going to be lined up with the edge of the pronotum. So if you follow this line all the way down, all right, and then the other side. Now this texture, I'll admit, would be super helpful to use shading and color it in a little bit, because the texturing is so that really shading is the only way to kind of bring out these textures, or these mounds in the elytra. Although I do not believe that the actual texturing on this beetle is a key characteristic or helps identify. So you could also just kind of show that these textures are in lateral lines. I just want to scoot down a little bit to make sure that we have kind of this at the end of these wings all taken care of. So let's see. It looks like they need to get a little bit more narrow. I kind of stopped it a little earlier thinking that it was a little stubbier, but we can push it out just a little bit. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It looks like there's something tiny and orange where the scutellum is. Yes. We will be going ahead and looking at that too. So not only is this beetle covered in all types of textures, but every now and again it has, these are not other insects, and it's not really dust of any sort. These are seedy. These are hairs. And I believe they are, I would call them scale-like hairs. They're hairs that are kind of flat. Alrighty. So if we were going to actually look at the head is right here. It's kind of flat, almost scoop-like. We would actually have to turn the specimen completely to see things like the eyes, or the antenna, or the mouth parts. But before we flip it over and look at all of those other things, I want to get our dorsal sketch done and see how much time we have to play with the specimen. So up here at the top of this segment here, we call it the pronotum. We call this the pronotum up here, and it is, I would call this notched. It comes in to leave space for that head. Alright, so we've got this notch kind of taken care of, and that's where I was, and that's kind of where I was starting with starting with our darker lines, but I realized that my notch was just a little bit too deep, so I made it just a little bit more shallow up here. And then this is where our head kind of fits in here. And it's funny because you really can't see many of the features from the head from the dorsal view. But we will by the end of the class turn it over so that you can see what it looks like under there. Okay. All right, so we've got the head taken care of. Now, I do know that on the pronotum, these bumps here, the shaping and the organization of these is actually characteristic for, I think, down to genus, but maybe even down to species. So looking at essentially just where the rises are, that's gonna be what we sketch for our, that's what I'm going to sketch for the line drawings, is just like the outlines of these raised pieces. I've definitely looked at trogid keys, and that's generally what they have if you're trying to identify them instead of having lots of shading and trying to make it more complicated. They will just kind of sketch those lines. So that's what our goal. I want to run my finger all over that texture. Yes, I totally agree with you. And I definitely, the first time I collected a trogid skin beetle, I definitely held it for a significant period of time. So I came around here and I did round off the edges of my pronotum just a little bit. It's not going to match evenly, but I guess that's something that I noticed when we zoomed in. Now, I want to bring it in just a little bit before we connect it to back here, which are our elytra. All right, so we've got it kind of connected in, but you'll notice that the where the pronotum matches the elytra, it's not a straight line across. There is still kind of this V here. So where I have my pronotum matching up to my elytra, and I might even, I think it's good enough. There's a part of me that thinks that it might want to be a little bit wider, or narrower, maybe. Here. Maybe it's just too... This will be good. Alright. And so we're going to connect it in here, and then we are going to give this little V shape. Keep in mind you want your V to be central, so the very, very center of your beetle, that's where you're going to want the lowest point of your V. And you can even give yourself a center line if you would like. And then you can erase all of these other kind of guidelines. All right, so that is our overall shape for our pronotum. But we want to add at least a little bit of the shapes in this region. So we have one that is long, like this, on both sides. Keep in mind that this is a symmetrical pattern. We've got two smaller ones that fit in a little bit to this Y region down here. And then up here, I think they look a little bit like H's to me. Let's see. They come in like this. And then they do kind of circle around this one just a little bit. All right, so that's how I'm am going to sketch that one, and then I'm going to try to make it match on the other side. That's the goal. Pretty close. I'm happy with that. So that gives us an idea of at least the texture and the shaping on the pronotum, which is going to be key. All right, so I want to zoom in on this cute little adorable scutellum. So we are looking at this scutellum. It sits right here in between the two forewings of our beetle. And a lot of times, you know, scutellums are triangular, or sometimes they are kind of this heart shape. But our trogid, it has a diamond-shaped scutellum. And I do believe that the diamond-shaped scutellum gets you down to genus. I believe the genus is Omorgus, actually. That just popped into my head. Yes, Omorgus. So the genus on our beetle here, we got it past trogid just by looking at it, is Omorgus. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I believe I have identified this beetle all the way down to species, except I did it on my Instagram, and I forgot to make a label for the specimen. So, nope, just Omorgus. I didn't get it past that. Good. So if you wanted to write the species, you could just write Omorgus sp. That means that it's in the genus Omorgus, but that we don't know exactly what species it is. This specimen was collected in... This specimen was collected in Oak Creek, Arizona. So I'm going to go in here and add my little mini scutellum. And you want it to be at the very, very center. It's like a little necktie. Oh, I love that. Deborah asked, what did you say the bumps were called? I didn't label the bumps. I've been calling them texture, but, I wish I had a good word for a bumpy texture. I'm sure that science has a good... I just don't know what it is. Crenate? I don't know if it would be crenate. I'm not sure. I wish I knew. starting from right here at our scutellum, we're going to be moving our we're going to be shaping our elytra. Now, our elytra, from the center all the way to the edge, it has this really beautiful round shape. Admittedly, this reminds me of the top of a heart. I know that once it comes to the side, it runs straight and parallel to itself, but right here, it's very heart-shaped. So I'm going to be using that as a reference for when I'm making mine. Let's see. And kind of rounding off these corners a little bit, because when I had first drawn them, I made the edges a little bit too sharp. I'm just picking up the edges of the elytra just a little bit so that they can match up to the pronotum. I am happy about that. No problem, Deb. I was calling it textured. I was calling it a rough texture. I would almost want to call it... these bumps are almost tall enough to call them projections, but a lot of times I imagine a projection is something that's kind of even taller than these. All right, so from the center of our diamond, we are going to make a straight line all the way down to the bottom. And you know what? Sometimes, especially with elytra, because these are a super straight line. Oh, yes. How long is the beetle? Great question. And our beetle fits underneath the microscope well. So I can go ahead and zoom out here. And we can get a good size. Right about there. There. All right. Our beetle from the front of the head to the back of the abdomen on our specimen here is 1.33 centimeters. So 1 1/3. From the front of the head to the end of the elytra, it's 1 1/3 centimeters. So, I mean, it's a pretty good-sized beetle. It's over 1/2 inch. And a lot of times, I like to use a ruler, especially when I'm drawing the center line of these elytra here, because the elytra, or these first hardened forewings of a beetle, are always, it's always even and straight. So I'm going to start my looking at my ruler up. Ooh, you know what? It might not be... My texture is not centered enough to use it as a guideline. I'm just going to have to do it by hand. Yeah, it's a pretty straight line. No problem, Amanda. So if you were curious about this little gold dot on the center of my screen here, this is actually the top of the pin from where I pinned the specimen through. So you may think it looks like it's a little far back to be pinned there, But you want to pin between the second and third pair of legs. And if you see, our second pair of legs comes out around here, and our third pair of legs doesn't come out till around about here. And so that's actually pinned right about where it should be. When we flip the specimen over, we'll be able to see that the pin comes through the bottom in between the second and third pairs of legs. So I am pretty happy with the overall shape of my light outline from earlier. So I'm going through and just making it a more solid line and getting rid of some of these extra lines out here. And the left side it was actually a little too large, so I've already erased it. I'm coming back in. Let's see. I have students who use who sketch electronically rather than on the paper, and I tend to be just a little bit envious of the symmetry tool, especially when sketching insects. Alright, we're going to zoom in on our elytra, this forewing, and we're going to check out some of the texturing. I'm going to say we probably, wow. I thought that a lot of the texture was linear so that we could kind of count how many lines came down and kind of sketch that. But there are a good number of textured bumps in the region that also go horizontally. And all of this orange stuff, if we zoom in far enough, you'll notice that all of this orange stuff, this is actually like scales and hairs. It's one of those insects that I've always found interesting because it does have scales and hairs, but it's not complete. It's not like the scales and hairs are everywhere in its body. It's only in a handful of places. And I've wondered sometimes if they start with more, and then over the course of time, as they're kind of walking around, the tops of their textures will kind of rub off those hairs and those seedy, and then what's kind of lower stays this really bright orange color. But that's just something I've pondered. I haven't read that yet. So I guess what we'll do is we will leave it here just for a moment to give us some time to sketch at least some of this texturing onto our elytra. I'm just going to do the left side, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to make my sketch a little bit different today. I'm feeling a little different. So we're going to turn the specimen, and we're going to look at the head, and we're going to sketch the head. I'm going to pretend like the legs are all tucked unless we have time at the end, after the head. So, let's see. I do want to give myself some lines because it looks like, to me, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, and then maybe 4 here along the center line. So, I'm going to give myself kind of those... one, like a short one in the center, and then kind of a wider stripe of texture here. 2, 3. Alright, so I've got some of these lighter kind of guidelines, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into where they are higher, I guess. I'm just attempting to create some, attempting to create some texturing in here. Morning, Chaos. The word elytra is spelled E-L-Y-T-R-A. And Deb asks, is there a notch at the end of the elytra? And the answer is no, but we can go ahead and zoom down here just so that you can see. Sometimes there is a separation or a small notch in between the elytra, but because this beetle is working so hard to pretend it's a solid rock, it tends to not have any real knobs or edges or notches. It does. You can see this is that center line, so in between the elytra it might open up just a tiny bit, but not enough that it is significant. And when we're looking at it from way up here, the only real texturing you see on the end of the elytra is the texturing that you can see because the beetle's elytra are curved down and are textured this way. This way. So when you look down, you can kind of see those individual lines. And fun story, elytra is our plural word. If you wanted to talk about one elytron, the word for the singular is elytron. Elytra is pluralized. Alright, so this is the area that is not textured, and the next one is right here. So I had sketched these kind of guidelines in for myself so that I could have lines to work off of when I was adding all of this texture in and kind of watching the shapes and sizes of our bumps. I wish I had, I'm sure that there is a good word for the bumps on the elytra. So I'm just going to be leaving the one side, I believe, and then I might go ahead and kind of darken. At least if I have a series of rows of irregular shaped bumps on the back of the elytra, then you get the idea of the pattern. The genus level identification is this diamond shaped scutellum, so making sure that you have that is going to be very important to the identification of your specimen. And then these up here are also important. The texturing up here on the pronotum, those shapes are important. So my trogid can turn all the way upside down. Let's look at his face. Now those little dots, nope, those look like they could be scales too. There was a part of me that thought that those little dots up here on the front of the head might be commensalistic mites, but they do not seem to be. Now, I also have a microscope image of the trogid's head, and I believe that it's going to be just a little bit more defined and more detailed than what we are seeing here. So I wanted to go and I'm going to go and find it for us really quick. Something that I love about the trogid's head. Oh, that's why. I do have to flip them all the way over. This one. There he goes. So we'll just use this picture. All right, this is still a microscope image, one of my microscope images of this trogid beetle. It is actually a series of stacked images. I believe this image, to get all of the depth in the hair and the texturing took more than the average photo. I'm going to go and check, because now I'm curious how many exactly images it took to make this. Let's see. No, it wasn't that many. This is about 20 images, stacked all on top of each other. So, we are looking at, this is the top ridge of the head. Over here to the left, that's our compound eye. It has eyelashes that cover its entire eye. All right, those aren't eyelashes, but those are long hairs around around this compound eye, and then these hairs over here are protecting the compound eye in this direction. Now, this right here is the insect's upper lip, and he's got all of these hairs on the upper lip. He's got a mustache. All right, our friend the trogid beetle has a mustache, and if we zoom in, oh, we can't zoom in because it's a microscope image, but what I can do is this. I can make the image bigger. Alrighty, so what we are looking at here are a handful of different features on our beetle's mouth. So, hey, grab the fly. There we go. This is Mr. Terry. Alright, right here and here, these are the mandibles. These are our chewing mouth parts. You can see it's super shiny here. It starts here kind of wide and is going to come down here in this triangular shape. All right, and then up here in the front, we also have, we call these palps. The top ones are labial palps, and the bottom ones are maxillary palps. And there are 4 of them. There are 2 on each side. The ones that are lower are a little bit more difficult to see. So up here, and then there's one set that are a little bit lower. And then underneath all of that, you do have a lower jaw that is not super visible from this angle. There. All right, I'm going to of the image just so that we can continue to see this. You know, maybe I'll just shrink it back down for us. There. That's better. So I'm going to kind of give myself a little line, and then I'm gonna go ahead and sketch this head here. So let's see. I think the easiest line to start with is probably this, for me, is this arch here is probably going to be the easiest shape for me to start with. And then I'm going to add on this texture up here at the top, what looks like two little horns. I think those are so cute. And then we will go continue with the eyes and we'll work down from there. That's the plan. Alright, so we've got those two horn-looking guys right there, or ridges. It's funny because we've got names for, like, striations, which are not bumps externally, but they are, like, this way. Like, they create divots. I don't remember. I wish I did. Okay. So I'm going to take these edges down, curve these edges down just a little bit, and then bring it back towards the center. But once you get to the very, very center, that's where our labrum, or that upper lip, is going to exist. So once you get to be about here, you want to give it just a little bit of an upward arch, because that, my friends, is where we're going to add this here. That is our upper lip, and then all of the mustache hairs. Yay! Those are beautiful golden hairs, too. All right. And then our eyes are off here to the side. Now, one characteristic that helps us ID a trogid to family, not really past family, are the eyes. There is one type of darkling beetle that has a very similar structure to these skin beetles. So there's kind of a darkling beetle that mimics these guys. And the way to tell them apart is in the eyes and the antenna shape. I do not believe we can see the antenna on this specimen just because it's so tucked, but we can tell the eyes. Now, in darkling beetles, their eyes are kidney bean shaped. So they're kind of like this. They're shaped like a kidney bean. And then the antenna comes out from the center of that kidney bean. Whereas my trogids, their eyes don't have that kidney bean shape. All right, and so that's going to be our distinguishing feature. So we've got our eyes here. Now, we do have quote-unquote eyelashes. Now, admittedly, I do think that those hairs around the eyes keeps the eyes clean. This specimen is from Arizona, and regularly with desert-dwelling species, you will see longer hairs around the head and around the compound eyes. And I believe that really is just to keep the sand out of their eyes. So I went in and I added this top line, has all of its the top line has all of its hairs going up. The outside line has all of its hairs going this way. And then the right line, they kind of fan open. So they go off to the left and they go up. And it's going to be the same on the other side. And once you get to be right about here, this is actually where the mandibles start. So the mandibles start right in this region. And they move forwards underneath the head. Or underneath that front lip. Kind of like these. Aw, thank you, Akshay. How do I know so much? I don't know. It all just stays up here in my head. I think about insects all day long, every day. So this is our mandible, and it's coming down to a point over here on the right, and the left one is going to do the same thing. It comes down to a point. Nom nom noms. And then underneath that, we have our palps. Those little, we call them, our common name for them, like Insectopia's common name for them, are mouth fingers. You'll never hear anyone else say that. And if they look at you, they might think you're crazy. But they're called palps. And admittedly, I'm going to make them look like they're coming out of nothing. I'm kind of making them float down here. Oops, over here. I'm kind of making them float down here, and then I'm going to darken the space around them because it's really hard to see exactly where they're connected to because there are those legs in the way. And we could even sketch these legs. This portion right about here, that's our femur. That's that really, that's the first segment of the leg, and it looks super strong. I've always imagined trogons being like, whew, really, really powerful, even though there's no real reason for them to be too strong. It's not like they have to lift anything, dead animals or anything. So I think that's where I'm going to stop my sketch of the head here. I'm just going to darken a little bit of this space in this region so that our labial palps look like they are connected to something. Super cool. Yay. I love that, Caitlin. Maybe they have secret fight clubs. You never know. They could. Let's see. Let's get the microscope back. Where did the microscope go? There it is. I mean, once we get a good picture of these front legs, you will see exactly what I mean. Let's see. They definitely look like they're pumped. Look at how cute. Whew! They're so strong. So, Something that we may notice is now that we've zoomed out a little bit and we're not looking directly at the head. Oops. Terry, now that we're looking exactly at the head, this is actually the edge of our pronotum. This is the edge of our pronotum here. So you can see how easily this head region just tucks into the pronotum. So right here, this edge is just this top portion of the head here, right at this ridge. So in theory, you could even add this ridge. You could add this ridge here so that there's a comparable characteristic on it so that you can say, yes, that is exactly where it goes. That's the underside of our friend here. Do they have simple eyes? I do not believe so. These eyes are only the compound eyes. These beetles do not have simple eyes. Yeah, so I did look to see if there were ocelli. We can look one more time just to make sure. Yeah. Right. Beetles in general don't tend to have ocelli. You see ocelli in flies. You see them in butterflies, and you see them in bees and wasps and ants. And I guess some beetles, but not this beetle. So we haven't looked at the rest of the underside of our friend here, so I wanted to give us just a good look at some of the textures. Now this, I do know the name of this texture. So this is definitely what I would call punctate. It looks like somebody has taken a needle and poked a bunch of holes in the exoskeleton. You see how there's a whole bunch of divots? We call this texturing punctate. And those individual little dots, we call them punctations. Love them punctations. Exactly. Does it mean that this beetle is a punk? Possibly, but it's a dapper punk because it's wearing a necktie, remember? Punctuations is a good thing to remember too because that's kind of like you could imagine a period at the end of a sentence. I wonder if the word punct, I wonder if the root of that word comes from the same place. Now we need an etymologist here, so they can talk to us about more of the roots. So sometimes I come to the same realization as you, ladies and gentlemen, but there's just a little bit of lag in between the camera and the chat box. So I laugh because sometimes we come to the exact same, like final realizations at almost the same exact time, and it makes me laugh. Punctual means on time to the second, like on a point. Oh, I love that. Punctual, too. Punctations, punctual, punctuation, punctate. All right. So, something that I have found interesting about trogid beetles. So, all right, here. Sometimes I call them trogid beetles instead of skin beetles. And that is just taking the AE off of the family name. And many entomologists will do this. So if you take the family name Trogidae and then you take the E off of it, a lot of times we will kind of shorten names like that. For instance, Ichneumonidae, wasps, are a lot of times just referred to as ichneumons. Because even though us scientists like to add all of the syllables, then we'll shorten all of our words and take syllables away. Are punctations the dips or little pits, or is the surface smooth and spotty? The punctations are the little pits. They're like they look like somebody took, they look like somebody took a little pin and poked little holes or little divots in the exoskeleton. So that's what they are. Somehow, I got a really good sliver sitting here doing a live stream. How'd that happen? I'm gonna have to take it out. Like orange skins. Exactly. And we learned that the orange skin pits are where the smells come from a week or two ago. At least I did. You guys teach me about plants, I teach you about bugs. So, when we look at the abdomen and the elytra, a lot of times the abdomen is directly connected or right up against the elytra. But in trogid beetles, the abdomen is just slightly smaller than the elytra. And the elytra are so rigid that they don't conform to the edges of the abdomen. So when you flip them over, you have this gap. Excuse me. You have this gap here, and you can see the thickness of the elytra. You can see the gap in between the elytra and the abdomen. And this is where the abdomen is. Now, a lot of times people think the abdomen is really, really big in beetles, but the abdomen starts here and goes to here. The abdomen is not very large. It is mostly thorax. Like the tiny gaps behind my sofa where things get lost. I love that. So, I have a guess. I'm not sure how great it is, but I know that in nature journaling we like to ponder a little bit or wonder about what we're looking at. And so here is my pondering. These trogid beetles, they live in the desert, right? And they do have spiracles. Spiracles are what these beetles are going to use to breathe. And those spiracles are on the sides of the abdomen, all right? And they are covered up by the elytra, so we can't see them at all. I have this inner monologue saying maybe there is this gap here between the abdomen and the elytra, and it might have something to do with the way that they breathe, or maybe protecting themselves from, or being able to breathe in something like a desert storm, like a sandstorm, or wherever they're, maybe when they dig down into the soil. Maybe when they dig down into the soil, this little air pocket gives them the ability to breathe. Those are my guesses. Save a bit of skin for later. Oh, that's funny. I don't think that they're using underneath their elytra as a pocket, but it is a decent guess. There are actually beetles that use their elytra as they have little pockets underneath their elytra. There are beetles that do that. Especially, the one that comes to mind is a beetle called the bark beetle. Especially the mountain pine bark beetle. You may have heard of it. It causes all types of damage to pine trees. It's no good. People are trying to get rid of it. But it travels with a backpack of fungus that carries a disease of pine trees. And so these bark beetles, they'll gnaw into the tree and they release this fungus and they give the tree a disease, and then the tree gets stressed, and then it's easier to eat. And then, so these bark beetles will actually like carry little pouches of bad fungus that actually will help them eat the tree. That's probably a pretty great guess. Amanda said, do you think that the first pair of legs may help with the digging process? I would say for sure. Yeah. I think those legs would definitely help with the digging process. They're going to dig with their front legs. There are a number of Hymenoptera, and there's a number of bees and wasps that actually dig with their hind legs. But I believe these beetles are going to be digging with their front legs. Look, they even have... All right, so check this out. I'm going to turn our specimen a little bit. So if we look in this region, this is the tibia. So the femur was the one that looked really strong. The tibia has these raised notches, raised portions, 1 and 2. And my guess is that those are definitely going to help with the digging too, kind of pushing it out of the way. And those big, strong muscles are going to be used as kind of this leverage. And its tibial spur looks almost like a thumb. Oh, it's a little after the hour. Thank you so much, Avea, for pointing out the time. I super appreciate it. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I am going to have to slow down and get off today. I am live every single day of October, so if you haven't had enough of me yet, you can come back tomorrow at 10 p.m. And yes, thank you so much for keeping me in mind. My sleep is kind of important, and I'm waking up in approximately 5 hours to go on live television. So... definitely should do that. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging out with me today. Today, I had such a fun time looking at our skin beetle. I think my sketch from today is a decent sketch, and I'm really excited about the head that we did. I think that the eyes and the mouth look really awesome. And I love the little eyelashes. So, I did want to say thank you so much. This is OutSchool. This is where I teach students ages 5 to 8, 9 to 12, and every now and again, I guess my students come to my live streams now, which is really exciting. I love to see everybody double dipping, coming in, getting in as much of the insect knowledge as possible. I will share as much as I can with you, ladies and gentlemen. It's what I love. This is your reminder to please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can't click here, but you can click down there. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You can hit the bell for a notification when I go live. Every now and again, I go live. Surprise! But for the entire month of October, I'm going to be going live every single day for Invertober, which is every now and again considered Inkvertober, when we're doing inking of our old pencil sketches. This QR code links directly to my PayPal account. If you've had a great time today, if you want to share the love, if you want to drop me a couple of dollars for coffee in the morning, no, not coffee, probably, but pins and collecting gear and those types of things. The tips do go towards all of my insect collection and helping me to continue to increase my collection so we always have new specimens to sketch and new specimens to look at. If you are looking for me on social media at Insectopia and you can't find me, that's because I am actually at Insectopia 2015 on both Facebook and Instagram. So if you're having a hard time finding me, that might be why. Someone else took Insectopia. Darn it. All right, but that is fine. Maybe one day I'll steal it back. If we get really, really big, I think I'll be able to take it back. So we're going to try. So that is our story. I had a great time working with you, ladies and gentlemen. We're sticking it to the hour. Let's see. There were hearts for Deborah, Susan, Akshay, and everyone. Hearts, hearts, hearts to everybody. Do you know if it will be available online afterward? I do believe so. I believe that my parts will be online and available, and when I find them, I'll be sharing them on my social media. So I'll be sharing them at Insectopia 2015 at Facebook. So if you're not already kind of liked and following my Facebook page, that's going to be where we're going to see those links. I don't always post on social media, but when I do, it's worthwhile. So go ahead and give me a follow there. I hope everybody has a wonderful night and tomorrow, and maybe week. Maybe I'll see some of you next week. But many of you will likely see tomorrow at 10 p.m. We are going to be switching over and doing some ink tomorrow. All right. Thank you so much, and stay buggy.